Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a really fascinating turn away from, the purely technical skills and diving headfirst into the behaviors,
Yeah.
psychology really,
Yeah.
that define optimal client service. This isn't about how smart you are. It's about how you prove that competence to the people who matter most.
That's exactly right. I mean, whether you're a top-tier lawyer, a financial advisor, a consultant, it doesn't matter. Your technical expertise is just the foundation. It's the bare minimum to even get a seat at the table.
Right. It's the price of admission.
It is. So our source material, drawing from Jim Donovan's insights, lays out these 11 distinct actionable heuristics. These are rules of thumb, really, designed to move a professional past just simple transactions
Yeah.
and into building real long-term trust.
And what I think makes this deep dive so valuable is that we're going to focus on the why. Why does one action create credibility and another just completely erodes it? So we're unpacking these 11 rules, looking at the dynamics of communication credibility, and this is the surprising part, control. Let's just jump right in, starting with the most basic element of any interaction, the words you choose.
Okay, rule number one, and this is a big one, never use jargon.
It's such an easy trap to fall into, isn't it?
Oh, constantly. Professionals fall into it all the time. They spend years learning this specialized language, right? And they use terms like res judicata or enterprise value because those words feel, well, they feel authoritative. They feel efficient.
It's almost a nervous Siddiq, like they think using these complex terms is how you assert expertise. But here's the critical psychological failure in that. The client, who could be a CEO, a brilliant entrepreneur, almost certainly won't fully grasp the nuance of your specialized vocabulary.
They won't. And because they're in a professional setting, they will not ask for clarification.
They won't ask. They don't want to look foolish.
Exactly. The client sits there, they're nodding politely, but inside they're feeling more and more lost and, crucially, foolish. And who do they blame for making them feel that way?
Not themselves.
Not themselves. They blame the professional who used the confusing language. And that immediately breeds resentment. It destroys the very trust you're trying to build. You have to commit to simplifying complexity using clear, direct English.
That need for clarity leads us perfectly to rule number 2, which is, I think it's genuinely counterintuitive for a lot of people, pause. Why is silence, which can feel so awkward, why is it actually a tool for control and dialogue?
Pausing is one of the most powerful tools you have. There are 3 key effects here. First, it regulates you. When we get anxious, our speech speeds up. Pausing forces you to slow down, so you appear calmer to the client, and that actually generates a positive feedback loop that calms your own anxiety down.
Okay, so that's the internal benefit. But what about for the client? I get that it creates a kind of vacuum for dialogue, letting them jump in with questions.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that third point, that subtle shift in power. How does silence translate into authority?
Well, because the client is paying for your expertise.
Right.
They expect a performance. When you pause, you disrupt that expected rhythm. You create this moment of mild uncertainty. The client is used to dictating things in their own business, but when you, the expert, intentionally delay that next sentence, you force them to adjust to your cadence. It's a subtle act, but it shifts the inherent power imbalance, which usually favors the client, just slightly back towards you. It signals that you're the captain of this specific subject.
That idea of being the captain, that takes us right to rule number 10, control the meeting. If you are the expert, you have to manage the flow of the information.
Absolutely. When you walk into that room, it's your structure, your flow, your time. You can't let a highly engaged client or someone on their team take the discussion sideways. It doesn't matter how interesting that sidetrack is.
So if the CEO asks a fantastic question, but it's totally off topic for that moment, something you plan to cover later, you have to redirect without sounding dismissive.
Exactly. You have to be firm but polite. You acknowledge the question, that's key. Use phrases like, that's a great line of inquiry, and I'm going to circle back to that in 10 minutes when we review the data.
Or, hold that thought, I have that specifically covered under point 3.
Yes. You're protecting the integrity of your plan, and that is essential for showing competence.
And that plan is, well, it's nothing without Rule 11. Have an agenda and write things down.
The agenda is your roadmap, and it has to be a shared contract. You communicate it right up front, point 1, 2, 3, and then you ask the client, does this structure make sense? Anything you need to add or remove?
You get their buy-in.
You get their buy-in immediately. Then they own the structure with you, which makes it less likely they'll try to derail it later.
And the note-taking part. Even if you have a photographic memory, you're saying it's non-negotiable.
It's purely a psychological tool for the client's anxiety. I mean, think about that analogy of dining out with a big group, maybe 8 or 10 people. When the waiter takes all those complicated custom orders without writing a single thing down, it doesn't matter how charming or brilliant they seem. Someone at that table is immediately stressed that their food is going to come out wrong.
That flash of anxiety, that's what you want to avoid for the client in a high-stakes meeting.
Precisely. The client is already worried about very complex outcomes. Your visible act of writing things down, every question, every detail, especially every follow-up item, it's a constant, tangible reassurance. You are signaling, I am not going to drop the ball. And then crucially, you wrap up the meeting by recapping those written items. Okay, our next steps are A, B, and C. That reduction of their anxiety is a powerful way to convey competence.
Okay, so now that we've established control and clarity in the interaction, let's move to the next stage. Building trust, both intellectually and emotionally. And the foundation for that starts with rule number 4. Ask open-ended questions.
Right, this is where you shift from presenting to discovering. If you ask a closed yes or no question like, are you concerned about regulation? You get nothing back. You have to ask, what are your greatest concerns right now? Or what keeps you up at night on this project? And this approach serves two major and I'd say equally important functions.
The first one, which I find so fascinating, is just the pure enjoyment factor for the client.
It's basic psychology. People love talking about themselves and their own journey, so asking questions like, what was the founding of this company really like? Or how did you manage that acquisition back in the early days? It creates this powerful, positive association with you. They leave the meeting feeling heard, feeling appreciated, and they link that good feeling to their interaction with you.
And the second function is the professional gold mine, the insight you gain.
That's it. You discover the critical biases, the passions, the fears, the specific context that drives their decision-making. And that depth of understanding lets you tailor your advice. You're not just solving a technical problem anymore. You're solving the client's actual problem, which is so often rooted in personal history or company culture.
And you deliver that insight with Rule 7. Be humble. Genuine humility is just, it's incredibly endearing.
It is. When you're dealing with a successful client, you have to remember they are the expert in their domain. Your job is to respect that. You have to offer sincere, specific compliments. Use phrases that show you get what a monumental task they've accomplished. Say something like, what you've achieved with this business is extraordinary. I don't think I could ever hope to know a fraction of what you know about this market.
That's sincerity, though. That recognition of their expertise.
Right.
It has to be balanced with Rule 5, which is be positive and upbeat. Because if you're truly humble, you shouldn't be burdening the client with your own problems.
No, you're hired to solve their problems, not introduce new ones. The client is focused on mitigating massive risk. They need a dose of confidence and positive energy from you. So when they ask, how are you doing? The answer has to be upbeat. Great, fantastic, thanks, how are you?
I remember so clearly, early in my career, I made that mistake. Someone asked how I was, and I said, oh, I'm okay, but my apartment flooded over the weekend, so it's been a nightmare. And you could just see the client's face. They just shut down. They didn't hire me to worry about my plumbing. They hired me to manage their assets. It immediately signaled I might be distracted.
That is a perfect illustration. Distraction suggests reduced competence. You have to maintain that professional, positive facade because confidence is contagious, and the client needs to catch it from you.
And all these rules, they sort of build up to Rule 3, which the source material calls the single most powerful way to establish credibility. This is the ultimate trust lever. Look for opportunities to give contrary advice.
This is where the rubber meets the road. I mean, trust is easy when you're telling the client what they want to hear. Trust is cemented when you tell them something painful that costs you money. Let's take the extreme example. Your firm is engaged on a major transaction, and you only get paid if that transaction is consummated.
So you have a massive fee hanging in the
A
balance.
huge fee, exactly. And yet, if your analysis shows that proceeding is not in the client's best long-term interest, you must advise them not to consummate the deal.
And the client knows instantly that you are sacrificing your own immediate financial gain for their well-being.
It fundamentally reframes the entire relationship. They realize in that moment that your fiduciary commitment is absolute, that you're a true partner, not just a mercenary chasing a fee. That one moment of contrary advice will generate more high-value long-term business than a dozen fees you might collect on compromise deals. It proves you prioritize their outcome over your income.
Okay, let's shift to our final segment, which is about defining your professional authority and availability. Rule number 8, be responsive and available. This is more than just, checking emails. It's a commitment.
It has to be an intentional, upfront commitment. You tell the client, you are a top priority and you have access to me whenever you need it. But that commitment only matters if you back it up with immediate action. You have to respond to every single call and email without delay.
But what if you're, I don't know, in transit, or you just don't have the answer yet? You can't stop and analyze complex data instantly.
You don't need the answer, you just need to respond immediately anyway. Acknowledge you got the communication and let them know you are actively working on it. Just got your note. I don't have the final numbers yet, but I'll have a full analysis for you by 4 p.m. This kind of behavioral pattern is vital, especially in the early days of a relationship. First impressions die hard. You need them to know, from minute one, that they are your priority.
That responsiveness builds confidence, which is absolutely necessary when you then apply Rule 9. Take a position.
Right. Clients hire you because they need direction, not just a list of options. If they wanted a menu of choices that all looked equally good, they wouldn't have hired an expensive expert in the first place. You have to present the options, of course, but then you must advocate strongly for one specific recommendation.
Don't equivocate.
No. Explain the trade-offs of the alternatives, but then plant your flag. Tell them, based on these facts, our firm strongly recommends option B, and here is exactly why. Your authority comes from your willingness to own that recommendation and accept the responsibility that comes with it.
Let's end with Rule 6, which I think challenges a lot of really deeply ingrained professional habits. Be careful about mixing business with social activities.
Oh, this rule is such a powerful reality check. It's driven by an anecdote in the source material from his early days at Goldman Sachs. He had compiled this list of the 10 new associates who he thought would be the most successful 5 years down the line. And he picked them based on their perceived social skills, the best schmoozers, the ones who were good at golf, the ones who could charm a client at a cocktail party.
And what was the outcome of that prediction?
He says the list was dead wrong. Most of those people had been fired or were struggling. His initial criteria, social fluency, salesmanship, networking flair, they turned out to be contraindicators of long-term success. They actually worked against their core competence.
Why? What do clients really hire you for?
They hire you for 2 things, only 2 things. Because you are smart and because you work hard. Period. They're not hiring you to be their best buddy or because you can take them out to the nicest steakhouse. Socializing blurs that bright line of authority. If you spend time together socially, you risk eroding the professional distance you need to give that tough, contrary advice we just talked about, the kind that might cost you both a fee. You have to maintain that professional distance to maintain your objective authority.
What a deep dive into the psychology of professional conduct. We've covered the 3 pillars here. Communicating with clarity by killing the jargon and using that strategic pause, building trust, which is powered by real humility and the counterintuitive strength of sacrificing a fee. And finally, delivering results, which relies on being immediately responsive and having the authority to take a firm position.
The overarching lesson here is that competence, just being smart and working hard, that's the mandatory prerequisite. But these 11 rules, these are the deliberate behaviors that demonstrate and prove that competence to the client. They convert your technical knowledge into genuine, earned trust. They're the methods for translating your expertise into client confidence.
Which leaves us with a provocative thought for you to consider as you apply these heuristics in your own professional life. If pure expertise really is just the price of admission, what does it say about our current high-stakes professional environment? That it requires such intentional and sometimes counterintuitive methods like pausing to manage power or giving up revenue just to convince the client that you're trustworthy enough to deliver the expertise they already hired you for. It shows that mastering human behavior is often more valuable than technical mastery in the pursuit of optimal service.